Ooh, what's up, Internet? My name is David Webb.
I'm Arrielle Edwards.
It's Friday, August 28th, 2020. We get nerdy nightly.
And we thought we'd share it with you. Yeah, it's Friday.
You ended that on like a with you. What was that inflection?
I don't know.
Welcome to a totally new podcast.
Yeah.
In that we are no longer two people making a podcast together. We are two engaged people.
Oh my God.
What? We got engaged this week, and I think it's fun, big news that I love calling you my fiance. I'm enjoying that immensely.
Yeah. Well, it's not going to last very long, so we're going to enjoy it.
We're going to get married quick. We'll probably announce that, the date and thing. We'll talk about that on a later podcast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we are here. It's early this week instead of coming out on Monday. Mm-hmm. And last week's was on Sunday. So, like, when this podcast comes out.
You know what? It's in
flux.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
We're out early this week because last night, Thursday, the 27th of August, in the year of our Lord 2020.
Jesus Christ. We saw 2 new movies.
We did. We went to a movie theater.
We did.
Again.
Yeah.
And saw 2 films in one night.
Yeah.
The Brave and the Bold right here. Mm-hmm. Really going for it. We saw Tenet.
Yep.
The new Christopher Nolan movie. Mm-hmm. And
New Mutants.
Yeah. The newest superhero film.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting, and we're going to talk about in a separate... So here's the deal. We watched 2 movies, but we want to do like a spoiler and a non-spoiler section for both of them. Mm-hmm. So we are going to split this into 2 podcasts, which both came out today. So if you're listening to this, the Tenet episode, because we're going to record them in the order that we saw them.
Yeah.
This is the Tenet episode, and we are going to only talk about Tenet. And then in the New Mutants, we'll only talk about New Mutants. Mm-hmm. Just so that, you can decide what you want to listen to. And we hope that you at least download both for our numbers.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, first of all, we went to like a theater that was like a childhood theater for both of us. Mm-hmm, and we hadn't been to in so long.
Yeah, I haven't seen a movie in Chinook since... The last movie I remember seeing in Chinook was Avatar.
Wow.
Not the not the M. Night Shyamalan.
No, like the blue
James
one.
Cameron one in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
But that can't be because I was still living here. The thing is, I worked at the West Hills Theater, the West Hills Cineplex, so I didn't go to Chinook very much because if I went to West Hills, I could just have whatever I wanted. You know what I mean? I was a manager there, so I just was like,
yeah. But yeah, it was an experience. I mean, the movie theaters are very empty right now. Mm-hmm. There's hardly anybody there.
There were 12 other people in Tenet, and there were 8 other people in New Mutants.
Yeah.
So very distant. We're talking theaters that hold like over 200 people in them, with a total of 14 and 10 people.
Yeah.
So the social distance was active.
Yeah. No one was anywhere near anyone else.
And we saw Tenet first. So let's get into Christopher Nolan's new movie, Tenet.
Yeah, well, it's...
Non-spoiler first. We're not going to talk spoilers until after. When you hear the anchor break, everything after that will be spoilers.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to hear spoilers, just listen until then and then come back after you've seen the movie.
Yeah, exactly. So Tenet was 2 hours and 30 minutes of kind of like, when you get like a brain freeze headache and you're like trying to figure out what's going on around you and like really pay attention. Mm-hmm. And honestly, like that was kind of the experience for me. Like I feel like my temples are sore. You know what I mean?
It was definitely something for sure. That was just spam.
Oh, I was like, is that Tellus?
No.
Okay.
It might have been actually. It's just my phone registered it as potential spam. And we're back.
Yep.
After dealing with Tellus's terrible customer service.
Yeah. That was several minutes we're not going to get back, but
several minutes we're not going to get back indeed. Doesn't matter. We're talking about Tenet, Christopher Nolan's new movie that you called a headache in the temples.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. it was not my favorite.
Yeah, the viewing experience was hampered for us. And I'm not
Yes.
sure if it's because of the way the movie is mixed or if it's because of the movie theater we're in. And I want to give Christopher Nolan the benefit of the doubt on this.
And say that, like, oh God, he would not put out that kind of shit. But it was hard to listen to. It was so loud.
Yeah, it was really, really unfortunate. And it just didn't seem mixed very well. Like there were times when there was exposition being delivered in the film that were impossible to listen to.
Yeah, you
and I
couldn't hear
regularly
anything.
found myself putting my fingers in my ears and actually being able to hear the dialogue better.
Yeah.
Because the like high pitched ambient noise that was cutting into everything was cut out. And what was interesting to me is that the sound design seemed to work better in the scenes where time was reversed. I don't think that's a spoiler to say. We should say Tenet is a movie about the basic premise of the film, without spoiling anything, is that there is a antagonistic force in the future who has discovered a way to make the entropy of matter go backwards,
Yeah.
thus making things seem to go backwards in time,
Yeah.
but not actually go backwards in time. And we're going to get after the ad break, I'm going to really dig into why the physics of this movie were bonkers.
Yeah, because we don't want spoilers in this part.
But so the essential premise is that things can go backwards in time, and so there are fights with things that are moving in reverse. And this is shown in the beginning in this scene in the opera house that is from the trailer, where the bullet in the concrete shoots back into the gun. And this is right at the top of the movie, so I don't think that's a spoiler. But it's the central premise of this movie. And it's a premise that the movie goes, you have to buy into this. Because we're not going to... This is how it works.
Yeah, this is it, and you can't really, like, dispute it. It's... Yeah.
What's weird about the movie to me is that it then tries to, for 2.5 hours, constantly explain it so that you feel like this is a real thing instead of like a movie thing. And I honestly feel like if the movie had tried like 20% less to get me on board with the concept, I actually would have been more on board with the concept.
Yeah.
If they had just... Because when the first bullet shoots backwards into the gun, I was like, dope, I understand how this works. Then they explained it, how that moment worked for 5 minutes, and I was like, okay, cool, I no longer understand how that works.
Yeah.
And then like the next, because they keep leveling up how the going backwards in time works. Throughout the movie, it progressively levels up like a video game a little bit.
Yeah, kind of.
And each time I would be like on board with the new thing because of the visual of it, and because Christopher Nolan shoots film so beautifully, and because this movie is so gorgeous to look at, even if don't want to listen to it. It's so... And the actors are all...
Yeah, everyone in the movie, honestly, like, showed up and did their fucking jobs.
Especially, I'm
heard-
going to pull up names because I don't want to get names wrong on this.
That's fair. But, especially since I did hear somewhere that, like, the people in the movie didn't really quite understand it.
They didn't know what was going on while they were filming it?
Yeah. You know, but I think they really, like, showed up for it and committed, and...
Elizabeth Debicki as... Kat, the wife of the Russian oligarch, was particularly... She was the only character in the movie who had, like, emotional stakes.
Stuff. Yeah.
And so a lot of the film, despite you not really understanding why she's there a lot of it, like, there's literally a moment where one of the characters is like, why are you bringing her into this? And the main character, known as the protagonist, who never gets a name, played really, really well by John David Washington.
Yep, 100%.
Is like, because she's the only one I trust. And I'm like, what?
What? Why? Like,
why? What possible reason would you trust her in this scenario?
Yeah.
It's wild. But Elizabeth Debicki is in throughout the whole movie and grounds the film in a lot of scenes where, like, you just want a human being.
Yeah.
And the leads are all kind of impossibly talented robots.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Well, they're just so good at everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was it was definitely lacking like that kind of like human component. That something like Inception I think did a little bit better.
Oh, for sure. Ellen Page's character in Inception,
fantastic. Leo and his wife, that whole like they felt like people.
But Leo is impossibly smooth in that movie in a lot of scenes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's not the protagonist. It's sort of like if you took Leonardo DiCaprio's character in that movie and made him the lead. I don't think Inception works. But because Ellen Page is there to be the lead and has a bit more of a grounded human part of the story to her, you buy Leo better.
Yeah.
Whereas John David Washington's character,
I mean, he's technically dead, like legally dead.
Yeah.
And
that's also beginning of the movie stuff. Like that's
that happens like right away. That's not really a spoiler. So obviously, I guess he can't really have any connections or relationships, really. But it's he just kind of seems like a very talented robot. That's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah. Well, and just because of there is an aspect of how impressive the fight choreography in this movie is that also it's so polished because it has to be in order for the reverse time mechanism to work.
Yeah.
That the people portraying it come across as being inhuman at times because their motions have to be so specific. Like the fight sequence in this, they never felt gritty.
Yes,
they
true.
always felt like either the protagonist had the force and was like impossibly good at fighting because he knew where the next hits were going to come, which is a weird implication in a movie where like time is warped, but or the motions had to happen in an exact way because we knew that we had to shoot it in reverse later, and so they had to happen in the, you know what I mean? And some of it had a little bit of that feeling in a movie that had a surprising amount of hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah. There's a lot of people punching each other.
There's a lot of punching in a movie where I'm like, don't you guys all have guns? Like every single person in this movie has a gun.
Yeah.
But they drop their guns immediately in every fight.
Yeah, I didn't even really like think about that, but you're right.
It cracked me up because everyone would like pull up their gun when they were already too close and then immediately drop their guns. And then the camera would track that the gun kept getting, like Christopher Nolan was trying to justify that they weren't shooting each other by making sure the audience knew exactly where the gun was bouncing around the room and whatever.
Yeah, true.
The other stand-on in this movie is Robert Pattinson, the third lead of the film. Who is making his case for why his Batman movie will be great.
Honestly, I'm sold.
Yeah, the scene, there's one scene where he shows up in like a nice suit, and I turned to Arrielle in the moment and was like, that's Bruce Wayne.
Yep, that's Batman.
Holy, he's Bruce Wayne right now. Like,
Yeah. No, I think he did a really good job. Honestly, definitely like the visuals, like the beauty of it, and like the acting were the best parts of the movie, hands down.
Oh, for sure.
Because honestly, the writing for me was questionable. the concept of it was like, at first I was like, yeah, and then I was like, wait, slow down, and then
but
also
please don't, because it's already 2.5 hours.
Oh my god, yeah, it was already 2.5 hours long. And then finally on top of that, the sound, and like we said, hopefully that's just the movie theater, but God, it was so jarring to watch. Like, and I just don't know, because like, you know, when Inception came out with the blah noise that changed film scores forever, there were moments in Inception that I also had problems with the sound in. Yeah.
And Dark Knight Rises, there was an interesting connection to Dark Knight Rises for me in this, because Christopher Nolan made that movie with Bane having this mask on the whole time. And I went to the original release of... They did an IMAX release of the first 9 minutes of The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
The plane sequence with Bane. And so I went to the big IMAX screen in New York City. And I was in that group of people that watched before they remixed Bane's voice. And before they ADR'd it, and I'm not going to lie to you, it was impossible to understand what he was saying. Really? And the final movie that came out a few months later, much easier to understand him.
Okay.
Like they really fixed it because, that theater I think holds over 400 people, and we're all Batman nerds who stood in line all day to watch this 9 minutes of footage.
Yeah.
And we all walked out going, does he ever take the mask off? Because like he shouldn't, but also like, did you understand a word of that?
Yeah.
And no one, and like there were a bunch of us. We all went out for dinner afterwards,
Yeah.
And we're all sitting there going, guys, I don't know if I can listen to that for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like it was grating on the ears. And it was funny because then this movie, there's so much important, vital exposition delivered with masks on.
They tell you so much information that is essential to understand what's happening in the scene. And you can't fucking understand a goddamn word. You're like, I'm sorry, take 2. What? Like.
But I'm sorry. It's like, I don't want to get into spoiling why the people have masks on.
Yeah, that'll be later.
But there's just a lot of dialogue that is way too important for the audience not to be able to see their lips if you're also going to have like helicopter noises in the background.
Yeah.
Like you can't have their lips covered so we can't read them.
Their voices muffled
by the mask, and then also
background,
a helicopter behind them, and then have a scientist with a mask on trying to explain a physics concept that isn't real for like a 4-minute scene.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed this movie way more than you did. I think that's fair to say.
I don't know.
liked
Here's
it.
the thing is I did enjoy like the experience of watching it. Like I honestly felt like
Except for the sound.
well, yes, the sound was really tough, but it was beautiful, and like I have a real deep appreciation for what the actors were trying to do.
And John David Washington is compelling to watch.
Yeah.
Like he really just thrives when he's center frame and he's the only thing going on, and you're just so drawn into how he reacts to things. He's such a compelling actor with just an incredible depth behind the eyes. And so even though his character didn't have a lot of emotion, his character kind of lived at one emotional level, he made the depth exist in the screen where I don't think the script necessarily gave him room to. He didn't even get a name. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I think that he did a really good job of making me care about a character that would be difficult to care about, I think. I think that a less compelling person would have kind of been boring in this role.
Totally.
And Christopher Nolan really lucked out in how magnificent John David Washington is.
Yeah, truly.
Especially like it can be kind of boring to watch someone win every fight, and not that he did, but there was that feeling a little bit.
Yeah.
But John David Washington actually had, I keep saying his whole name, but he actually,
it's like Robert Downey Jr. You have to say the whole thing.
Well, his name is John David Washington. Like he sounds like he should be running for president.
Yeah.
He really, his composure in those moments made me buy into his. And his confidence in those moments made me buy into what was going on screen in a way that in other things I would have gotten a little bit like, oh, okay, we get it. He's a Jedi, essentially.
Yeah.
It was interesting. It was an interesting movie to watch.
For sure. And like this is one of those movies where like after my movie ticket, I'm always like, was that worth the price? Like am I glad that I paid the money to go see it? And with this one, it's it's actually a bit tough for me because those stunning visuals definitely would be different at home. And so part of me is really glad that I got to see that movie on a big screen just because it was very beautiful. But in terms of enjoyment and like the actual like plot line of it, I guess it depends on why you go see a movie as to whether I'd recommend you go see it in theaters.
Yeah. I think that there's 3 scenes in this movie that are worth the price of admission for me because I literally almost stood up to get closer to the screen because of what was happening. And so to me, like the movie was successful in that. And I truly believe that there's magic in this movie.
Yeah.
And I recommend it. I recommend the movie theater experience. To be honest, it's kind of the only place I would want to watch this movie.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to like sit snuggle at home and like cuddle up.
I don't know that I would
this.
get much out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this is kind of the experience of seeing this in theaters. And I don't know if it's just because it's the first new movie we saw in theaters in 5 months, but and, you know, I'm very grateful that Canadians are taking the virus seriously and we have it under control enough that that's an option to us. I know that there are going to be people in the States who listen to this and are like, oh, I would love to go see the movie and I can't. And I totally, if we were in the States and the numbers were what they were there, we wouldn't have gone. You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't have been safe. And the fact that everyone in the movie theater was wearing masks and all of that made us feel like this was, I didn't really feel like it was a risk. It just felt like we've got the virus under control pretty much here and we're doing good.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that the Canadians around us seem to be taking it as seriously as we are. And we're very fortunate to live in a place where people are willing to put on the mask to protect other people. And I hope that my fellow Americans, as I am a dual citizen and I get a bit of both of me, I hope that I hope empathy wins the day on this one and that people will be willing to put aside their desires and wear a mask so that we can get control of this across all of North America instead of just the top hat. But yeah, I don't know that this isn't a movie that I want to dive any deeper into. Like Inception, like I wanted to dive into it because dream logic is a concept that is a bit more sci-fi than this. And so you can kind of like get a little trippier with it. This movie isn't. It tries so hard to come across as possible that it veers that it's not asking me to believe anything. It's asking me to like agree with a truth. Yeah. And so I don't get to imprint on the movie just all right, I'm with you. Yeah. Because I did that and then the movie was like batted it down. I was like, no, you're not with me until you fully understand how physics work. And I'm like, I don't.
Yeah, I didn't need that. Like,
I think it was a French critic. I might be wrong, but they said that the movie was like a math test. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, I just paid $15
to take the SATs again.
Yeah, like, oh god, and like have my ears be shattered half the time.
That's the most unfortunate part because I feel like if they had just turned it down a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have helped understand some of the dialogue that was being said behind the masks, but
yeah, but there were so many times where I just felt lost because like they were speaking and I didn't know what they were saying and I was just like, all right, well, I guess I'll just watch. Like,
and honestly, if I'm the truth is so much of this movie is shown visually in a way that makes more sense than the way that it was described in text. Yeah. And it was really fascinating to see that on display in that they would say something and I would be like, that doesn't make any sense. And then they would show me physically how it worked. And I'd be like, okay, I buy that, but that's not what you just explained.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Like this movie's concept of entropy is wild, but it doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah. So not if you can't think about it too hard.
You really can't because it here as a spoiler for the spoiler that we're about to get into. We'll get into spoilers after the break, but the idea of entropy in this is that you can send something backwards in time so that it is constantly moving backwards, right? And the entropy of its motion is going backwards. So it appears to people moving forward in time as if it's going backwards in time because in some ways that is, right? The problem becomes that thing has to be going back in time forever. Yeah. And so the evidence of all the things that happen in this movie would have existed going back forever. Like they don't suddenly appear. And so there are moments in this movie where things should have already happened that haven't happened yet because they haven't happened yet for the plot of this film. Yeah. And so the entropy of that object can't have... This is the kind of fun discussion we're going to have after we have a quick ad break. But let's would you recommend seeing this movie before we go to that?
You know what? I think actually what you said is very interesting. I would never buy this movie to have in my library.
No, I agree.
But if you are curious about it, I would say the theater experience is the way to go.
And if you want a movie where you will literally be wowed by cinematography, I recommend this film.
Yeah. If that's what gets you going, like this is like the movie for you. Because it was truly beautiful.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, it's Christopher Nolan, of course it is. Yeah. The dude's a visual master. I want him to work with a second writer who like does relationships.
Yeah.
And I'll get into that after these messages. All right, we're back. This is the spoiler section for Tenet. Yeah. The new Christopher Nolan movie, and we're going to talk about spoilers. So if you don't want to get spoiled,
then
don't
now.
listen to the spoiler section of the podcast.
Yeah.
I just ended the first part by saying a person knows relationships.
Yes.
And the reason I say that is because at the end of this movie, because we're going to jump right to the end of this movie, because it's a time movie that goes backwards, so who gives a shit?
Yep. So we're going to start
Robert
at the
Pattinson
end.
is like, this is the beginning of a great friendship for me.
No, for you.
Or no, sorry, you're in the middle and I'm at the end, right? And I was like, are you guys friends?
Yeah.
Like, all of the relationships in this movie happen instantly. John David Washington is like instantly in love with Kat, which is weird.
Yeah.
But also like is totally willing to put her in harm's way. Him and Robert Pattinson are completely like broing out.
Yeah.
Automatically.
Yeah.
Even though Robert Pattinson is clearly lying to him.
Yeah.
But also not lying to him. He just can't tell him yet because it hasn't happened yet. Despite the fact that what Robert Pattinson believes is what's happened. Which this movie is insane.
Yeah.
And the insanity started for me when the first time we saw a human go back in time. Mm-hmm. Because, like, how? You know?
Yeah.
If you were to set the entropy of molecules in reverse, there's a few problems.
Yes. And here's the problem. Is if they had ignored all of them and just asked you to believe it, fine. But the problem is they kind of went half-ass on it. Like they were like, oh, you have to wear these special masks and breathe reverse oxygen.
Oh yeah, your oxygen has to be reversed because your inverted lungs cannot breathe regular oxygen. And I was like, but then wouldn't your... So then
what about your blood? Like what about like eating and drinking? Like how does all this work?
Nobody inverted ever eats.
Nope.
Or drinks in this movie.
Yeah.
Actually, no one...
They drink a few times.
They do drink
in the movie, but I don't think anyone ever eats anything.
I mean, there's so many weird things in this movie. For instance, the fact that like in order to go back in time, because there's near the end of the movie they go back 2 weeks, right, to the event that has the potential to be the end of the world. Yeah. That can't have been the end of the world if they survived, but they have to go back anyway. I can't even get into that, but the idea that these people are going back in time by constantly living out weeks of time in reverse
is lunacy.
Is wild.
Yeah.
Because then there are multiples of them living at the same time.
Just going different directions.
Just in different storage crates on different boats around the world. Yeah. And they oh my God. Like, because they're like, you can't breathe reverse oxygen. I'm like, great. But are cells in reverse? So like, I asked you this last night, but is the mitochondria the powerhouse of the cell? Like, if you were to reverse the entropy of a living organism, how would it create energy to function? Yeah. Because the cells would be moving in reverse. Therefore, the cells would be unable to process anything. Because if your lungs can't process regular oxygen properly, then how does any of the rest of your body function? So my question becomes: Are you creating energy in your body by creating energy in reverse? Therefore, are you actually, when you're inverted, breathing in CO2 and breathing out oxygen because you're functioning in reverse?
That's what I assumed.
So do you have to reverse poop in order to get energy and then vomit out food?
I mean, yeah, it kind of like with the logic that they go by, like the oxygen, yes.
Because everything has to be inverted, right? Or do you have to eat inverted food?
What is inverted food?
Food that's gone through an inversion machine.
Oh.
And then you're pooping inverted poop.
This is so
You know what I
weird.
really wanted from this movie?
What?
Was a scene where they like broke down a bathroom door and watched someone in the toilet who's inverted with the poop going back up into them.
No. No. Get out. I would have left. I would have been like, no, I can't. Like, I can't.
But like,
yeah.
it's
And you made a good point about like you wouldn't be able to see anything.
Yeah, because light wouldn't enter your brain. Like we're not physicists.
Yeah, like light
so
wouldn't
maybe
reflect the same way off of your eyes, like through I mean, yeah, science. Not
you
my
would
forte,
be shooting light out of your eyes. I think
you would be Superman.
Well, and part of the problem for me became like, all right, so this bullet shoots. This bullet will be shot in the future, but it's going back in time, and so there's the crack in the glass now. And I'm like, but then, in order for that to work, that panel of glass would have to be installed moving forward by the... would have to be installed in the forward time with the bullet embedded in it. So you would know that there was going to be like why aren't people noticing that there's holes in all of their glass? You know what I mean? Like in order for this world to function, the bullet's backwards entropy would create a ripple effect forever.
Yeah.
So then people who are glass blowers would have found bullets in their work and then put it into the glass shattered on purpose?
Yeah, I don't.
Unless the film is implying that there is a point at which you get close enough to event, and then so you would be implying that the entropy on that bullet degrades over time, and so the rate at which the entropy on the bullet degrades would imply how far back into the past. So yeah, so if the reverse entropy on the bullet degrades, then well, no, but this would explain. So John David Washington gets stabbed, and he has a wound that when he's going backwards in time gets more dangerous the closer he is to the moment he gets stabbed, right? And he starts bleeding more from the wound the closer he is, implying that the reverse entropy on that wound... Wait, no, that doesn't work. But then he would have gotten that... No, here's the problem with that. He would have gotten that wound when he stabbed himself moving forward.
Yeah.
But he didn't get stabbed at the same... Or he would have... No, it would have just been like a scar at that point because it's been weeks. This movie doesn't work.
Yeah, it was a cool idea, I think.
And it's executed really well sometimes.
Yeah, but it's just like you can't like... You either had to tell us, this is what's up, no questions asked, and then just ran with it. Or, no, that's the only thing you could have done. They explained it way too much. They tried so hard. They wanted to make this, like, so real. And there's no way to. Like, it's impossible. This movie probably would have worked a lot better if they had explained a lot less and just, like, asked you to buy into it and whatever, you suspended your disbelief for 2.5 hours.
Well, and it bugged me in moments when, like, they get into a car and the side shield thing on the car is damaged. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, cool. That's going to be a moment where time backs up immediately.
Yeah, 100%.
I've known about the concept of this for like 12 minutes at this point, and I looked at that and went, oh, okay, watch out for that.
But
and
they
the characters
just didn't notice.
Who are fully aware of this and who this is their job just missed it. Are like, all right, I guess my side meal's broken. And I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Why are in order for this to happen, the characters have to be dumber than I am? And I don't like that. Yeah. Like, when they walk into the vault room for the first time, and Robert Pattinson and John David Washington are looking at the bullet holes like, huh. And I'm like, y'all.
You're like, guys, you have done this before.
Y'all. You know what's about to happen.
Yeah. I'm like, how do you not? How? Like, how?
Like, truly, how?
Yeah, it's...
This movie also suffers from a thing that bugs me of, because I talked about how perfect John David Washington is.
Yeah.
In this, and it bugs me that, like, this movie is so afraid of him failing at anything that it makes his failures in the movie intentional. Like, because he gives the case over to the bad guy and he fails. And then Priya, the Mumbai arms dealer,
Yeah.
she's like, did you fail? Or were you supposed to let him have it all along? And I'm like,
wait.
Fuck off.
Yeah, wait a second. Like, whoa.
Also, when Elizabeth gets reverse shot, which I love being able to say, or no, Kat. Elizabeth Debicki's the actress. Kat gets reverse shot, and they're like, all right, well, we need to reinvert her 4 days in the past in order for her to heal. And I was like, okay.
Like,
and they're like, well, we have to go back to the thing in Oslo because the good guys don't have a time turner, which is what I'm going to call them now.
Time turner, yeah.
So they go through the whole thing of breaking back into Oslo to do that.
Yeah.
And then they immediately go to a boat where they have a big-ass time turner thing.
To turn back everybody for this big epic fight at the end.
Yeah, but I was like, wait, why the fuck did you go back to Oslo? You have a time turner.
Yeah.
You have a big boat.
Yeah.
The whole
going
boat
backwards.
is moving backwards. Like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
Well, sorry, we can't help you. You're going to have to live in a storage container with no food, going backwards in time for 5 days so that you can go fight yourself at an event where you can't interact with yourself. And yet
he does.
The movie, he's like, oh yeah, well, we know we can break into it because we did 5 days ago, so we're going to go break into that. And the woman's like, oh yeah, cowboy shit, go do that. And I'm like, is no one concerned about the fact that he's planning to go talk to him? Like,
yeah, like if they introduced that if your matter comes into contact with each other in different like time, then it explodes. Like it literally just like fucking detonates. You know what I mean? Like,
and the movie could have gotten away with all of it if they just had been like, it's future stuff, like who knows how it works. It just seems that things are going back in time.
Yeah.
But instead it got into the minutia of it, and it got so far into the minutia of it that I started to be like, well, that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
Like what you're saying isn't what's happening in front of me. Yeah. So what's happening? Yeah.
No, it was they would have this movie would have done, I think, done better, and I would have enjoyed it a lot more if it hadn't tried so goddamn hard.
Yeah, I also think that like the big bad at the end of this is supposed to be this equation that reverses all time.
The algorithm. They say it many times.
Yeah, so it's the algorithm that reverses all time.
Yeah,
everywhere.
so the concept of the algorithm was that if you reverse enough things to counteract, like the algorithm was to calculate exactly how much stuff you would need to send the opposite direction to literally destroy the world.
Here's the problem with that. If you reverse everything, why would the world end? If you just reversed entropy, right? Yeah. Wouldn't it? But like, if things can exist backwards, why would the world end?
We were just told that that's how it works.
Like, if you reversed everything, wouldn't it just be easier to be in reverse? Because everything would be in reverse? Functionally, would you see a difference?
I don't know. We were just told that if enough stuff gets reversed, the world ends. And we were just supposed to be like, okay. Yeah. And that's really hard. Like you can't, like I said, you can't have it both ways. You either need to explain it to a T and it needs to work and make sense, or you just have to be like, it's future stuff. Like,
well, and so the thing that the moment that I was the most on board for this movie was when Fleur Delacour showed up. Yes. To be like, we are dealing with the detritus, which is a great word. We're dealing with the detritus of a war that has yet to be fought. Yeah. Right? And I was like, oh, cool. So the point of this movie is that John David Washington is going to have to stop the war before the backwards war before it happens. Mm-hmm. But that's not what happens.
No, that's not. Like,
And
that
so-
whole meeting with her, kind of, honestly, like, I forgot about for the most part because it just was kind of insignificant. It
Well,
didn't mean anything.
there was a point in this movie where it became a superhero movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it's honestly, it's when he goes back in time for the first time, because everything from there to the end is Suicide Squad. It's we have to get the team together to do the thing to stop the end of the world, and it kind of became. And it's funny because Christopher Nolan is like anti superhero movie, and yet he kind of made one.
Yeah.
Like, this movie functions with the similar plot structure to a superhero film. You have this character who has to leave their old life because of knowledge or power or whatever. He or she, but in this case he, is brought into a world that he didn't know existed.
Yeah.
Of magic and bullshit. Because it's bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, it's a bunch of mumbo jumbo to justify the most beautiful fight sequences Christopher Nolan could imagine. He levels up through, okay, well, at first it's just bullets, then it's bigger objects, then it's people, then it's him. So he's literally leveling up throughout the movie. He finds out about the world-ending device. He uses his team and his superpowers to fight the bad guys who also have the exact same superpowers. It's literally Iron Man, the movie,
Yeah.
with time shit.
Well, and like, sorry.
And when it gives up on being the like, oh, we have to stop the future war that's going to be fought in reverse, and it becomes, oh, we have to stop, we have to get to the cave to get the mulligan so that we can stop the
algorithm.
The algorithm.
The algorithm.
Like, literally, there was a moment because Kenneth Branagh directed Artemis Fowl, and he's in this movie.
Yeah.
And there was a moment where I was like, oh my god, Kenneth Branagh has the Oculus. And they said the algorithm so many times. I was like,
guys,
this is the Oculus all over again.
Yeah, I'm like, we get it. Like, we get it.
And the Oculus even looked like an alien staff or something. Not the Oculus, the algorithm.
The algorithm.
It was like a. They put it together, and then I was like, "How does anyone know how to turn that on?"
Like, yeah, it was this weird steampunk like metal rod thing. I don't know. It was very confusing.
But he was also sending it into the future in a time capsule.
Yeah, because it was that they talked about the grandfather paradox, so they were sending it back to the future, I think, so that they would have it to know it.
No, they needed to. So if he sent it back to the future could use it to wipe out the present. Because the future is pissed that global warming made the seas rise.
Yeah, they're basically like mad at older generations. So like our time, they were like, oh, they fucking ruined the planet.
Which is like a fair thing, but also like, if you had the technology to turn back time, you're telling me you can't fix your problems modern day?
Yeah, and the other thing is like, how does murdering everybody in the past help you? Like, is this just a vengeance thing? Like, I was like, why do you want to obliterate, like, everything? You know what I mean? Like, because it seemed like they wanted to end the universe. It was literally like fucking Infinity War.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
This is, oh my god, Tenet is a superhero movie.
I knew it.
Oh my god.
I knew it.
Where was the spandex? Christopher Nolan, you fucked up. Where were my costumes? Other than I loved the final action scene fought between two large opposing forces in different shades of tan.
Yeah.
I was like, what is
Literally,
happening?
I was like, thank God it's a slightly different shade. Otherwise, how would I manage? Like, and that final action scene, we didn't even know it, like they just like got dropped off, ran up and started shooting, and I was like, wait, what are they shooting at?
They didn't set up that there were any people that they were shooting at
or
for
enemy.
like 4 or 5 shots.
Yeah, they just started running and shooting, and I was like, wait, what's happening? Why are they shooting? What's going on? And then after a few minutes, we kind of saw like enemies, but it was very confusing.
The best moment in that whole action sequence is when the person gets where the wall unblows up. And the person's like using the wall that is in like a broken wall as cover. And then the wall reverses in time and like comes back together around them. That was dope.
Yeah,
I was
cool.
like, that's really, really, really cool. Because that wall hasn't been... Wait a second. That doesn't make any sense.
What? Yeah.
The wall, but the wall it just comes back together, but it never blew up.
I mean, I don't know.
Oh, no, wait, because it was shot by something moving backwards. So as you move forward, the wall comes back together.
But it's like you said about the whole glass and the bullet thing. Like, the people there have been put back in time, but that wall hasn't been. And the wall just was on the ground and then flew back into place.
Well, and that's a problem I have with the whole movie's concept, is that there's an implication in the film that the objects around an object have their entropy reversed by them being struck by that object. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make sense to me that would function that way. Yeah. I think that if you shot a bullet back in time and the bullet hit the glass, the bullet might pop back out when you move forward in time again, but the glass would stay cracked because its entropy is still moving forward. You have just hit it backwards. So like the glass that flies off onto the ground, the entropy of that glass wouldn't change. And so it wouldn't be able to reconstruct itself unless its entropy was also reverted. And I don't think that the entropy, there's no, and maybe because they're saying that it's radiation that causes the entropy to reverse, that they're saying in a way that the entropy, that radiation like gets bled off. So like you, by coming into contact with that, the entropy would bleed off. But the implication of that then is that if you were to fight a person whose entropy was reversed, then you would be taking that radiation in, and your entropy would be being reversed
in those moments. Yeah, which doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Which makes what happens in the movie function better, but then some of your matter would be in reverse entropy when you get inverted. So then you would have parts of your matter which are moving forward in time and parts of your matter which are moving backwards in time, depending on how much entropy radiation you had infused from the fight scene before you got into the machine.
I can't. That's as much as I can handle.
If that sentence makes sense to you, this is the movie for you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I literally, like, my brain is melting as we try to figure this out, because I'm like, I cannot.
It's funny because it's like a movie that I'm like, if I watched it again, I might understand it better.
I don't think so.
I don't really have any desire to ever watch this again.
Yeah, which was, you know what? Like, I definitely thought that going in, I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna go see two movies tonight. Tenet's gonna be good, and then New Mutants. You know, we'll see. I'm hopeful. And honestly, spoiler for next episode, but we kind of just walked out disappointed overall.
But if you want to know our thoughts on New Mutants, please come back for the second podcast, which will probably go up around the same time as this one. And we're going to call that on Tenet. We could go into every moment, but like every moment kind of has the same kind of like...
It has the same problems. You know, like I think we kind of covered most of it and shared our thoughts about it. And, you know, if you, like, let us know what you think, you know, at us. Or go see the movie and let us know if we are just incapable of comprehending.
You know what, though? Don't at us. At Nerdy Nightly, all across social media. We have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Patreon, Reddit, Twitch. Yeah. Arrielle's over at twitch.tv/Claristracaris. As we always say here, come back for the next episode. No, I'm kidding. My name's David Webb.
I'm Arrielle Edwards.
Do something nerdy tonight. Bye-bye. Bye.